I was depressed. I felt like a nobody.
My mother, she's in jail right now.
So when I started getting older, things started changing.
I became very angry and I acted out.
I was really lonely and really separated.
People didn't see me. I was the invisible one.
I did not ever think I would become homeless, no.
I've lived in San Diego for over 25 years, and our slogan, America's Finest City, really says a lot about who we are. I think San Diego started as a military town, but I think we're very different. We're very diverse. We're growing. A lot of different industry here in this community.
Well, I think it's a mixture. It's got all kinds of income levels and all kinds of cultures and ethnicities, which makes it, to me, interesting to live in.
I love San Diego. It's a very easy place to live. It has the advantages of a large city in terms of economy and things to do, but it has the feel of a smaller town.
We have a great Hispanic community, we have a great gay community, we have a community of young people that are really active in politics that I'm really, lucky to know and to have met.
I like everything about San Diego. I'm a native of San Diego, born and raised right here. But it's a tourist attraction. Like you see a lot of things about SeaWorld, the San Diego Zoo, Balboa Park, and the Midway that's down on Harbor Drive down there, different things like that. So
I'm specifically always fascinated by the diversity among the youth spread across this really diverse county.
It's a real fulfilling town, and plus the view isn't bad and the weather's not bad.
So sort of politically conservative, socially liberal might be a way to describe it.
Despite being a wonderful place to live and having great weather and a wonderful natural environment, we're facing some critical problems here in the city of San Diego. And one of those prime symptoms is homelessness.
The homeless population in San Diego varies. Most people think of a homeless person and they think of someone pushing a shopping cart.
When people think of homeless, they think of the old guy by the side of the road with the sign, or they think of people that they see kind of laying out in the daytime, sleeping off, they're drunk or they're high or whatever. But that is a really tiny piece of the population and doesn't reflect the rest of the people that are homeless.
If you take a look at who's homeless or how many persons become homeless and move in and out of homeless in a year, it changes, and it has increased in the last couple of years. If you take a look at the kinds of persons that are homeless, it's dramatically changing.
Well, somebody who's homeless is somebody who does not have a fixed or stable place to live, or maybe the place that they're living isn't really fit for human habitation.
The homeless population that we see is very, very different. It's youth.
The total number of kids on the street, we really don't have an exact estimate. We go with the number from the Homeless Task Force, which they say it's about maybe 700 to 800 kids who are homeless on any given night. But when we go out on the street, when the outreach team is out on the street, we see a lot of kids that they don't see, because they count kids that they can see visually or that's visible to them. We count kids who are invisible, where we go into, the canyons, behind the dumpsters, abandoned cars, abandoned buildings. These are the kids that they don't see. So I would estimate that there's more than likely, say, 1,000 to 2,000 kids who are homeless on any given night in San Diego County.
I gotta tell you something, I've never met a homeless person that stands still to be counted. So my opinion is, I don't care what the numbers are, I think they're low. I think they're very, very conservative, and I think they're way too low.
It's an incredibly tough population to pin down, but I know when I've heard the estimates for the number in San Diego or in California, I think it's just scratching the surface.
You're faced with children that I think are at high risk of becoming homeless. If you are 12, 13, 14 years old and you're out in the middle of the night, clearly there's some dysfunction at home that may lead you to that path.
I haven't really ever seen a homeless teen or a homeless young adult who their problems started at age 15, the first time they ran away. There's usually some really long history there of a lot of family dysfunction that's gone on over the years.
One child, one young person that's living on the streets is one too many. In a city that has so many resources, in a country that has so many resources we have here in San Diego in the United States.
Being homeless is not against the law. At least it's not against the law in the United States of America. It may be against the law in other parts of the world, where they round up kids that are homeless down in South America and you don't see them again. And I get the sense sometimes that that's what you want us to do. You just want us to round up these people, put them in a bus, and you don't want to see them again. Correct?
You know, as outreach workers, our job is to locate these kids. Our job is to maintain contact with these kids and give these kids resources. That's our job, and that's what we do. That's what we're supposed to be doing. That's what we better be doing.
The boundaries between the different types of youth are very porous and very fuzzy because young people can end up in many categories.
An unaccompanied youth is a youth who does not have supervision or attachment to their parent or to a legal guardian and are often living in unsafe situations.
They've been out in the streets, maybe couch surfing, staying at different friends' homes.
It's a young person who's not in the system, doesn't have, the state or the county or whatever caring for them, but also doesn't have a home to go back to.
Another term we use is a throwaway youth.
Throwaways are the kids that I think, unfortunately, families have turned their backs on. Many times because of the activity of the child. They're acting out, they're ADHD, they're passive-aggressive, they're bipolar, and the parent doesn't have a coping mechanism. So what happens is they just turn their back, change the locks, move away, or basically say, look, I call it the adios syndrome. They just tell their kid, look, get out of the house.
This is a term that often gets used, especially for children that are older, where the family is probably not very appropriate for them to go home to, but sometimes the system doesn't want to pick them up either, and they end up kind of caught between their family system and really the system that's intended to protect them.
Street youth traditionally are the youth who are in unreachable locations, high-risk locations, dangerous locations, and are the most distant from services provision or in terms of reachable. These youth are often the most transitory. These are the youth that have been oftentimes the most chronically abused and chronically thrown away from any caregivers, relatives, or other support networks throughout their life.
With systems youth, we see youth that have really grown up in either the foster care system or they've grown up as wards of the court because of involvement in probation and so on and so forth. I think we see young people that turn 18 and by definition they're considered adults. But when you look at their skills and abilities and what they're able to do, very few of them are in a position to function as an adult and take on the responsibility as an adult. And you see when these youth graduate out of that system, they flounder and in a very short period of time end up homeless or on the street or in need of services.
Well, San Diego Youth Services is probably, one of the most comprehensive agencies in the community when it comes to working with homeless and at-risk youth because of their ability to provide a full continuum of care of services. And then, of course, within our own agency, we have the Take Wing Transitional Living Program. It's a place where they can learn how to be successful in college, in jobs, in careers, and then ultimately live independently and be giving back to their community.
In order to really, I think, understand what a homeless youth looks like, you really have to talk to each of them. They all have their own story, and the more you talk to them, the more you understand some of the decision-making that goes into being homeless in San Diego County and anywhere else.
My parents used fear in everything they did to scare me. They did everything. They would sit there for hours trying to read off scriptures that would terrify me, and it worked very well. And my dad, he didn't so much threaten it, he just acted on it. And it got worse and worse because he has an anger problem. And each time it was a blow, and after a while it got so hard, I didn't want to live. I was going to a gym to work out that I had paid for by myself and everything, and they had seen some signs of abuse, and they threatened to call social services. I was really, really a mess. I don't remember ever being so scared. Finally, I packed all of my stuff. I was packed in about 20 minutes. I just put everything I thought I would absolutely need in suitcases. I had some money that I had saved up, my whole savings. I was like, okay, where's the cheapest ticket? And I just left.
My father died when I was 6. When he died, it was kind of like I felt I was lost. Growing up, we were living in poverty, and it was a lot of drugs, a lot of crackheads. In that environment, it's sort of like you get attached to it. It's like you're born into it. And my brothers and them tried to help me, tried to teach me things, but the only thing they knew was the streets. I was at the basketball court a lot because that's where all the drug dealers be at, the basketball court, the park. I started selling weed when I was 7. At 7 to 8 years old, I really didn't have that childhood where, you go outside and play hide and go see, or you go outside and, with your little friends and you guys play. All my friends sell drugs just like I did.
I was in the street, but I wasn't. I was always trying to find some type of attention, some type of positive attention. Because my parents weren't giving it to me. My sister wasn't giving it to me. My dad lived with me for a little bit. My mom kicked him out. And then it was just my mom, my sister, and me. And my mom was struggling paying the bills. So my sister went to the streets to sell drugs to pay the bills. And it was just a wreck. At 12, I met the father of my kids. At 13, I got pregnant. He actually went to the military, to the Marine Corps. And when he graduated from boot camp, I had conceived my son. But he wanted me near him. He wanted to have a family with me. And at 16, he was like, look, Xiomara, let's get married. So I was like, okay. Like, you know what I'm saying? We're together. We have a kid. I love you. You're my first. Why not? So living there, me and him were fist fighting at home. It got so bad where there were knives to my throat. And I would cry and I would get into fist fights. And one time I almost thought he broke my nose because he punched me in my face and there was blood all over the floor. And the police came. And when the police came, he said, he was laughing. Go, 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 go. He didn't care. He didn't care about my 3-month-old baby. He didn't care about my son. He just wanted me out of the house. So I was like, you know what? This is it.
The first thing you have to understand is my mother was a crackhead, for lack of better wording, and she did crack cocaine for 11 years, 9 months, of which she did with me in the womb. So with me being birthed, she chose to go back out on the streets and continue what she did best at the time. Mother was very abusive in every way of that word, mentally, spiritually, physically the most, very abusive. And it was there that my childhood ended. Because, with your mother is where you should have the most fondest of memories of your childhood. But yeah, that was not the case with me. And because of her decision, I was forced into foster care.
My mom and my father were never married. They were actually kind of just living together, hoping someday that they would get married. But there was a big secret that was being kept in the house that basically caused us to separate. And so my dad ended up going to prison. And so my mom didn't know how to handle us. We had a lot of conflict in the house. There was a lot of arguments, and it didn't really work as far as a relationship went. And by the time I graduated, I was 17 years old. But she said, you need to get the heck up out of my house. I can't, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to take care of you. So I packed all my stuff, put it all in my car, and I moved to San Diego. I slept in my car, and I tried to stay optimistic about it. I was thinking, okay, this is the way to explore San Diego. At least I have a car. And I remember when I was on one of the mountains in Mission Valley, when I was overlooking San Diego, I looked out at all the houses, and I was thinking, gosh, these people can get up out of their bed in the middle of the night and go in the kitchen and eat food. They can go use the restroom and not have to go, use the restroom at some 7-Eleven or on the street. And I'm just like, when is this going to be over? And what's going to happen that frees me from this situation? What is it going to be? I would just contemplate, what day is it going to be? What time is it going to be? What situation am I going to end up in where this is finally over?
We have this population that, because of the challenges that they're facing with housing, they're not able to focus on other needs that need to be met.
Affordable housing is important to an at-risk youth because having a house is important. Having a home is important. And you can think of it for any of us growing up, if we didn't have a home to live in that was kind of a basis or a nucleus for our life, then nothing else much matters. And for at-risk youth who may have other issues or problems or needs or service provisions as well, there's a need for a focus, for a location, for those things to occur. And I think not having a house, not having a home that's affordable for a family puts an at-risk youth at risk for even more than other issues that might be normally associated with growing up.
Most homeless youth are not homeless because of anything that they've done. This is a situation that's been imposed upon them. They've come from families that are unable to provide them with the love and care and structure and a stable home for them to live in. The least that people can do is to help get a more accurate perception out there and help people to have a bit more understanding about where homeless youth come from.
I never really thought I was going to end up homeless, Yeah, I mean, it wasn't really a concern, because I was always used to having a roof over my head or my dad around or my mom or somebody, that I was related to, I could, relate to. But no, it never really occurred to me.
Well, when I was younger, we wasn't always stable. We always went to my sister's house in Chula Vista, and then we would move back and forth because my dad wasn't able to pay the rent. Because my mother was out, she was still doing rent money and stuff, so he wasn't able to keep a roof over our head. And then we used to live in shelters downtown at the Salvation Armies or St. Vincent de Paul.
Life has already not dealt me, the best of hands, has already dealt me a bad hand just through the mere fact of me being born. Okay, I was dealt a bad hand. Okay, now here I am, trying to make it, and boom. Here I am with homelessness staring me face to face.
I never would have thought that. I've always had such a large group of people around me that cared about me. And I thought that even if I even contemplated the fact maybe I might be homeless or something, I never thought it would happen because I'm oh, well, I have friends. But then again, moving down to San Diego, I had no one.
The very first time I became homeless was actually when we were reuniting with our mother. We had to, in order for her to get us back, she had to go and live in St. Vincent de Paul. That was the first actual homeless experience that we had. We were actually living in a homeless shelter for about 2 years while my mom got on her feet.
When I was 7, I would run away. And for me, at that time in my life, I felt better off if I was out on the streets, and I knew someday I would be able to do something. I never thought I would be homeless for the rest of my life, but I was okay with maybe having that be an option for that time.
What kind of youth is able to put themselves together with the available resources and overcome a life of tragedy, a life of abuse, a life of trauma to become a successful contributing member of our society as we define it? I think all youth every youth is capable of that. I believe that every youth, even into their transitional age years, has somewhere in them still the capability of doing that. I think what are most important to jumpstart that potential in which they have, it becomes incumbent upon us, the way we interact with those youth.
Take Wing provides an opportunity for youth who are either emancipated or 18 and older to live independently. It's a wonderful opportunity for youth who otherwise may end up on the streets and be homeless.
When we have young people that turn 18, where do those young people go? Many of them don't have parents or family members or friends to turn to. Many of them don't necessarily have the life skills necessary to live independently. And so therefore, there needs to be some place for them to go where they can start learning to live independently. And that's what Take Wing is.
Take Wing has helped me with our independent living skills meetings. They help me with even the parenting meetings with my kids. They help me to even the community meetings, to even seeing how the community gets together.
I think it's good that we do all these different meetings and community service. It's all about giving back to community. I think we should all continue to do that. I enjoy community service a lot, and I think it's important.
It's humbling. It's showing me that, hey, you don't know everything. Hey, you didn't accomplish everything, because if you did, you wouldn't be here, you know. So in spite of and with all the resources, it's definitely a humbling experience, because at the end of the day, I'm in a program. I don't have my own apartment. I had my own apartment and I couldn't make it, you know. So through everything, it is definitely teaching me to be more humble, more appreciative of opportunities that I'm given in my life.
Everybody is craving stability. You know, everyone is craving normality, you know, whatever normality is. Everyone is craving it. You know, everybody wants dough in their pocket and food in their stomach and clothes on their back that are fresh, that are new, that are clean. You know, everybody wants that. And I'm telling you, if you work hard and if you don't give up, because that's the easiest thing to do, is give up. If you don't give up, you'll get all the finer things in life. Not that that's what life is about, but at the same time, you do deserve it.
Take Wing is such a big part of my life because it prepares you for when you get out.
Take Wing, as I envision it, is an opportunity for youth who haven't had traditional supports, whether that be caregivers or resources by extended family members, to recreate a housing situation, a community situation, and a structured, safe environment.
A family to me is, of course, people, but it's also about the environment, and it has to be an environment of love and nurture. That's what I feel a family is. Now, in a perfect family, you'll get that every day, but I'll take it 60% of the time. You know, there's gonna be good and bad, but a family is people who look out for each other, take care of each other, help each other, and at times give you that criticism that you need, that tough love that you need.
In a nutshell, my definition of family is ones who are willing to stick with the responsibility of the decision they made. The family I have now, I am a responsibility to them. You know, I am a life that they look after, you know, and they're willing to stick with that responsibility come hell or high water.
You know, my dad's in prison, my brother's somewhere living with some people, and my mom has kicked me out of the house and she's living somewhere and won't tell me her address. But now, after going to school, after doing a lot of self-discovering and uncovering, I really feel that family's everywhere. And family is what and who you make of it.
Take Wing is a family. Take Wing is a community, a family. We're all family here. We all knock on each other's door. Hey, you need some sugar. Hey, someone's in trouble. We're there.
Hopefully that there's people out there to understand that people like us, we're not different. We're just going through a lot. We've been through a lot in our life, and we're just looking for guidance because we have a lot of growing up to do.
One of the things that has really impressed me over the years with San Diego Youth Services is how collaborative they are, how outgoing they are in working with other community organizations that are supporting some of these same youth.
Between San Diego Youth Services, Tucson Academy, the Y, Project Oz, a number of groups that are working with young people, we've all discovered we've got to work together to help them really mature as adults. And there's competition for them. And I don't mean between the agencies. You know, we have 17, 16-year-olds arrive at Greyhound, and we may not be there to greet them, but I can tell you the pimps are. Because I can tell you that young kids are a very valuable commodity in the prostitution world, in the drug world. So we need to be able to have agencies that can meet these kids, meet their needs. Otherwise, we're just perpetuating our own criminal problem.
I think one of the things that we can do by intervening early, we could potentially avoid long-term substance abuse issues, long-term entry into chronic homelessness, long-term harm to individuals and their families. But those kids, when they're disenfranchised, they're in real trouble, and we need to intervene quickly, actually even younger than 16 if we can.
It's crucial at any point in someone's life, but the really nice thing with a young person is they're young enough that they're not set in their ways, but they're old enough that they are able to have some insight and they're able to start to see longer-term consequences of behaviors and look down the road a bit.
You have to provide that next step, that transitional step. And what I found in my district, where we have wonderful communities that have accepted a lot of affordable housing, particularly housing that's geared towards homeless youth, are that they actually like having those complexes in their community. They find that they're well-maintained. Those are good neighbors. Those are people you want in your community.
San Diego Youth Services has a great opportunity to provide these young people with some great experiences. And by creating those opportunities for success, only builds their self-confidence and will help them be better, more productive members of society.
We have the resources here in San Diego to end homelessness, to help keep these young people off the streets. We cannot expect that somebody else is going to take care of this problem for us.
We all have friends, we all have family, we all have neighbors that we know have either entered into homelessness or are close to becoming homeless, and how we can reach out to prevent that is, I think, instrumental in keeping our communities whole and healthy.
We rely on our partners. San Diego Youth Services is one of those partners we worked with for a long period of time, have a great track record. And in order for them to succeed, we need people throughout San Diego County, again, to open up their hearts and their pocketbooks.
It makes me happy that there's more people like that in this world that are giving money to help people like us, time, energy, anything, just to help out, you know? It makes a difference.
I know what it is not to feel like you have somewhere stable, or not to be able to call somewhere or something home.
Everyone felt that they were alone. Until Taekwon came and said, you know what? You're not alone. Here's the opportunity to be somebody, to have an apartment, to show you all these things.
They are us. They are part of the community. They are our children. They are our future. We can't ignore them. We can't continue to neglect them. They are not invisible. They are in front of us, and really it's our imperative to do something to help them.